The day the doctor told me my life as a man was over, I was strangely calm. The bullet that passed through my testicles had taken the last of my dignity with it. The Ice Queen CEO gave me a check for $10 million. I tore it to pieces right in front of her. I went back to my hometown, and next to my parents' graves, I picked out a nice plot for myself. As the shovel broke the earth, I felt a release I'd never known. I was about halfway done digging when a Maybach, the kind I'd only ever seen on TikTok, rolled up the dirt road and stopped in front of me. The same Ice Queen CEO I'd saved, dressed in a designer pantsuit, stood at the edge of the pit, looking down at me with a blank expression. Then, she pointed to her perfectly flat stomach. "I'm pregnant," she said. "It's yours." I laughed like it was the funniest goddamn thing I'd ever heard, pointing at my own crotch and howling. Her cold eyes didn't even flicker. "The bullet went through you, then hit me. The doctor said the bullet is what did it. Well, my name is Leo Miller. I work construction." Sweat rolled off my forehead, hit the scorching rebar with a sizzle, and vanished. A little more overtime this month, and I could send another $500 to my grandma back home. I was doing the math in my head when I stripped off my grimy tank top and wrung a stream of water from it. Quitting time. I was cutting through Daily Plaza downtown. A scream sliced through the evening quiet. A black van tore across the plaza, and a couple of masked guys were dragging a woman in a business suit toward it. I'd seen that woman before on CNBC. Isabel Frost, CEO of some multi-billion-dollar corporation. People stood around, filming with their phones from a distance. No one moved to help. Something in my head snapped. I grabbed half a broken brick from the pavement and charged. "Let her go," I yelled, my voice sounding stupidly small in the open square. One of the thugs turned, spat a curse, and came right at me. In the chaos, I brained one of them with the brick before another one's boot sent me sprawling. I saw a different goon pull a gun, aiming it at Isabel, who had just broken free. I didn't think. I just launched myself forward, tackling her to the ground and covering her with my body. Crack! The sound of the gunshot. An indescribable agony exploded in my lower body, searing through every nerve. My vision went black, and I was gone. When I woke up, I was in a hospital. White. Everything was white. A cop was by my bed taking a statement, telling me over and over what a hero I was, a model citizen. I listened, feeling a little puffed up. "Leo Miller, you finally did something right." A doctor walked in holding a clipboard, his expression terrifyingly neutral. He cleared his throat. "Mr. Miller, the bullet severely damaged the tissue of both testicles. To save your life, we had to perform a complete orchiectomy. In other words," the doctor paused, searching for a gentle way to put it, "you've lost the ability to have children, as well as all sexual function." My brain buzzed. The world, which had just started to have some color, faded to a dull, dead gray. The cop's praise, the nurse's pity, it all became a grating noise. I felt like I'd been thrown into a frozen lake, chilled straight through to the bone. It was worse than being dead. The hospital room door opened. Isabel Frost walked in, followed by an assistant carrying a briefcase. She looked the same as on TV, untouchable, with a face carved from ice. The assistant took a check from the briefcase and handed it to me. "Mr. Miller, this is a token of Ms. Frost's appreciation. $10 million as compensation for your heroic actions." His voice was all business, no warmth. I glanced at the check, then back at her. Her eyes. She was looking at me like I was an object, a thing that could be paid off and forgotten. Compensation? Appreciation? A tidal wave of humiliation washed over me, breaking down my last defense. I shot up in bed and snatched the check from the assistant's hand. R.I.P. Right in front of her, I tore that piece of paper, the kind of paper that could drive people mad with desire, into tiny little pieces. The fragments fluttered down like confetti onto her expensive leather shoes. "Get out!" I roared the words with every ounce of strength I had left. She froze. For the first time, a crack appeared in that perfect, icy facade. A flicker of shock. She gave me a long, hard look, then turned without a word and walked out. I fell back onto the bed, staring at the white ceiling. An empty shell. A man with no bones, no soul. "Leo Miller, you're finished." So I didn't call anyone. I checked myself out of the hospital. Stepping outside, the sunlight was blinding. I bought a one-way bus ticket back home. I snapped my SIM card in half and threw in the trash. This world had nothing to do with me anymore. The bus rattled and swayed, carrying my walking corpse back to the small Appalachian town that raised me. The mountains were the same, the creek was the same, but I couldn't feel a thing, just a dead silence inside. Now, what are you doing back? Brenda from the post office spotted me at the edge of town, her face a mask of surprise. Weren't you making it big in the city? You're thin as a rail. I ignored her and walked toward the old house. 3 dilapidated rooms my parents had left behind. They'd been empty since they passed. From a dusty corner, I dug out a rusty old shovel. Hefting it over my shoulder, I walked toward the back hill. On the slope, there were 2 lonely graves. My mom and dad. I found a sunny spot next to them. Yeah, a nice view. I raised the shovel and slammed it into the earth. The smell of damp soil filled my nose. I never felt so grounded. Mayor Franklin came rushing over, huffing and puffing, pointing a finger in my face. Leo Miller, have you lost your mind? Digging your own grave? You're shaming your parents' memory. I didn't listen. One shovelful after another. My movements were steady, powerful, just like on a job site. My childhood sweetheart, Katie, showed up too. Tears streamed down her face as she grabbed my arm. Leo, please don't do this. Whatever it is, we can figure out together. I stopped and looked at her, my voice flat. Don't. Just let me build my own house in peace. She stared, then let go. Everyone was looking at me like I was a lunatic, but I never felt calmer. Death was the only thing I could control now. It was my end and my escape. Sweat soaked through my clothes, but I didn't feel tired. Watching the 6-foot-deep hole slowly take shape, I even started to think, what should I have carved on the headstone? Leo Miller. Too plain. How about a useless man? I was lost in thought when a deep engine roar, completely different from the tractors around here, cut through the air. I looked up, squinting. A black luxury car, the kind I'd only ever seen in Instagram reels, was chewing up our dirt road, heading straight for me. The little silver statue on the hood, I knew that one. A Maybach. 3 of the Maybach pulled up right beside the grave I was digging. The whole town lost its mind. The people who'd been gawking at me were now swarming the spaceship. The town gossips whispered to each other, and kids circled the car, wanting to touch it but not daring. The door opened. A foot in a 4-inch stiletto heel stepped onto the dusty West Virginia soil. The heel sank into the dirt. I saw its owner's brow twitch almost imperceptibly. It was Isabel Frost. She wore a tailored designer pantsuit, her hair pulled back without a single stray strand. She was completely out of place. Ignoring the stunned villagers, she walked straight toward me. Her heels punched little holes in the soft earth. She stopped at the edge of my pit and looked down at me, her expression unreadable. I was covered in dirt and sweat, like a groundhog she'd just unearthed. She was clean, pristine, like some goddess who didn't belong on this mortal coil. Her stare was starting to piss me off. What are you looking at? Want a tour of my new accommodations? She didn't answer my question. Her voice was cool, not loud, but every word landed like a shockwave, causing the eavesdropping villagers to gasp. I'm pregnant. I blinked. She added another sentence. It's yours. The air stood still for 3 seconds. Then a hysterical laugh ripped out of me. Ha 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 ha. I laughed so hard I doubled over, tears streaming from my eyes. It was the funniest joke I'd ever heard. Was she insane? Or was this some new, twisted way to humiliate me? I pointed at my own crotch, laughing until I couldn't breathe. With what? Miss Frost, you tell me, what did I use? My imagination? My laughter echoed across the hillside, sounding desperate and unhinged. The villagers started whispering, pointing at us. Didn't Leo? You know, city folk are wild. The man's broken, and he can still get a woman pregnant? Isabel ignored my hysterics and the gossip. Not a ripple of emotion crossed her cold, clear eyes. Expressionless, she uttered a single word. The bullet. My laughter died in my throat. She continued, her tone as analytical as if she were delivering a market report. The bullet passed through you first, then entered my body. It carried the most essential fragments of your tissue with it. The doctors confirmed it. The cellular viability of the fragments was exceptionally high. They successfully implanted inside of me. I was stunned. I looked at her dead serious face. There wasn't a hint of a joke in her expression. My worldview, which had been shattered by the doctor's diagnosis, was now being blown to smithereens by her. The villagers erupted. What in tarnation? A piece of lead can play stork now. Sweet Lord, the technology they got in the city is something else. That's what you call a long-distance delivery. I looked from Isabel's face, a mask of science and logic, to the villagers' expressions of pure, slack-jawed belief. For the first time, I felt like the world might be even crazier than I thought. Me, Leo Miller, a broken man, had gotten a CEO pregnant. With a bullet? Was I dreaming? It's a ballistic immaculate conception. The old books speak of such things. It is a sign of great fortune. Doc Abernathy, our town's semi-retired GP and resident scholar, peered at Isabel over his reading glasses and delivered his earth-shattering verdict. Mayor Franklin heard this and slapped his thigh. Great fortune. This is a blessing for Havenwood. He waved his arm decisively. If she's carrying a Miller, then she's one of us. She's staying right here to be looked after. And Leo, you stop digging that hole and get your ass out of there right now. And just like that, I was escorted by a crowd of euphoric townsfolk out of my own grave. Then, I was detained along with Isabel in my family's three-room, crumbling old house. Isabel's two assistants quickly unloaded half a dozen enormous suitcases from the trunk of the Maybach. They began a futile attempt to turn my decade-of-dust-covered home into a sterile maternity ward. Isabel took one look at our outhouse and declared the smell would stunt the fetus's development. She immediately pulled out her phone and ordered a 5-figure smart toilet from Amazon. Her assistant had to remind her, "Ms. Frost, he doesn't have plumbing or electricity." Isabel fell silent. She needed a hand-ground coffee to stay sharp for work. My grandma, her hands trembling with age, brought her a mug of hot water and tore open a packet of Nescafé 3-in-1. "Here you go, dearie. Best coffee in town. It's sweet." Isabel stared at the murky liquid with its floating creamer particles and fell silent again. She wanted an organic kale salad, air-freighted from Europe. My grandma scooped a huge portion of biscuits and gravy from the skillet and slid a perfect sunny-side-up egg on top. "Eat this. It'll stick to your ribs, give you strength." Watching Isabel and her elite team trip over themselves in my chaotic little house felt both devastating and hilarious. I pulled her out into the yard. "What the hell are you doing? Have you lost your mind?" She took a file from her assistant and handed it to me. "I'm not losing my mind. This is the report." I opened it, and my scalp prickled. An analysis of supersonic projectile-mediated xenobiotic implantation of human germline cells, a gene ballistic report. It was filled with molecular diagrams, cell division charts, and complex trajectory simulations I couldn't begin to understand. The conclusion was in bold type. Genetic compatibility between sample Leo Miller and recipient Isabel Frost is 99%. Zygote viability is S-class. Implantation successful. The footer had the official seal of some top-tier international biotech lab I'd never heard of. It all looked so professional, so damned authoritative. Staring at this flawlessly forged document, I sank into a deep well of self-doubt. Could I actually be wrong? Had science really come this far? That night, the mayor insisted she take the only real bed in the house, the one my parents used to sleep in. I was on the floor. She sat in the room, laptop open, headset on, holding a Zoom conference with a bunch of people from different countries. Words like billion project and KPI floated through the air. I lay on the cold floor, the smell of her expensive perfume mingling with the earthy scent of my home. It felt like we were living in two different dimensions. For the first time in weeks, I didn't think about dying. I just wanted to figure out what the hell was going on. 5 Isabel quickly drew up a strict fetal development KPI execution strategy. The plan was scheduled down to the minute. 6 in the morning, just as the sky was turning gray. She had her assistant set up a Bluetooth speaker in the yard to play Mozart's Ein Klein-Nacht music. The elegant music successfully woke up every chicken in a 1-mile radius. For a moment, the symphony of roosters, barking dogs, and classical strings was a special kind of rural chaos. At 7, I was required to read the latest Wall Street Journal aloud to her flat stomach. Leo Project, with feeling. This is to cultivate the child's foundational business acumen. I clutched the paper, staring at phrases like NASDAQ composite and circuit breaker, feeling like a complete moron. Due to fluctuations in international crude oil prices, the petrochemical sector is expected to see widespread gains next week. My throat was raw by the time I finished. She looked satisfied. The afternoon was for prenatal yoga. She rolled out a mat in the middle of the yard, flowing through a series of graceful, stretching poses. I was ordered to join her, a 6-foot-tall construction worker, trying to mimic her twists and leg lifts. I was as clumsy as a bear learning to walk. The neighborhood kids gathered around us, giggling. Isabel, however, was surprisingly patient. She tried to teach the kids English words. Apple, banana. By the end of the day, she hadn't taught them more than a few words, but she'd managed to pick up a colorful local curse. Christ on a cracker, chop chop. She snapped at her assistant to fetch her water, her face a perfect mask of indifference. Both I and the onlooking villagers were stunned into silence. I took her to the weekly farmer's market in town. She saw a carton of free-range eggs and immediately had her assistant assess their nutritional profile versus the commercial prospects of scaling production. She saw a woman selling hand-woven baskets and began analyzing their artisanal value add and feasibility for export to European markets. She tried to solve every problem with money. She decided the pig farm at the east end of town smelled too strong and was disrupting the fetal learning environment, so she made a direct offer to buy it. The owner, Old Man Higgins, chased her off with a manure shovel. "What in God's name did a city girl like you want with my pig farm? You trying to take my whole damn life?" Amidst one baffling incident after another, I realized I was starting to get used to her. She was absurd, but she had this drive. This need to do everything to the absolute extreme. That night, she asked me to read the financial news again. I tossed the paper aside. If the kid only listens to this, it's going to come out a greedy little capitalist. She frowned. A business mindset is fundamental for survival in the modern world. The foundation of survival is the land. I shot back. Instead of listening to stock reports, how about I teach you about the seasons? About how to plant corn? She hesitated, muttering nonsense under her breath, but she actually put her files down and sat quietly on the edge of the bed. I talked about planting, about fertilizing, about the harvest. I told her about the droughts and floods in our valley, about the funny things that happen in the fields. She listened intently, even asking questions. Why burn the stalks? Can't they be recycled into biofuel? That night, for the first time, we had a conversation that wasn't an argument. Late, lying on my makeshift bed on the floor, I could smell the faint scent of soap from her. Not the standoffish perfume. The feeling was strange. The town troublemaker, Ricky Peters, was my rival from way back. He'd always bullied me because I was an orphan. I ran into him at the general store when I was buying a pack of smokes. He looked me up and down with a sneer, a low chuckle rumbling in his chest. "Well, if it ain't our big hero, Leo Miller. Heard you made a name for yourself in the city. Gave up your family jewels for some broad. Huh." A few old-timers sitting on the porch chuckled. Their laughter cut deeper than a knife. I balled my fists, my nails digging into my palms. I wanted to deck him, but he was right. I didn't even have the most basic part of being a man anymore. What right did I have to fight anyone? A crushing wave of shame and helplessness pinned me to the spot. I finally uncurled my fists and turned to leave. "Leo, you're less than a eunuch now, ain't ya? Heard that CEO lady is pregnant with your kid, though. Ha, how'd you manage that? Send it to her in a dream." Ricky's laughter grew louder, more obnoxious. I froze, my whole body rigid. Just then, a cool voice sounded behind me. "Are you finished?" It was Isabel. She'd walked up without me noticing and was standing right behind me. She approached Ricky Peters, her face as blank as ever. No argument. No anger. She simply took out her phone and made a call. "Hello, is this the EPA? I'd like to report the illegal use of malachite green at the Peters Fish Farm on Clear Creek." Her voice was quiet, but every word was crystal clear. Ricky's face went white. His family ran the biggest catfish farm in the county. It was their entire livelihood. You're lying." Isabel put her phone away without giving him a second glance. "We'll find out if I am in about 30 minutes. With that, she grabbed my wrist and pulled me away. Less than half an hour later, a fleet of vehicles from the county inspection agency rolled into town. They went straight to Ricky's fish farm, took water samples on the spot, and slapped a quarantine notice on the gate. Ricky's legs gave out. He half ran, half crawled to my house, and dropped to his knees on the front porch. Mom, I was wrong. I got a big mouth. I ain't human. Please have mercy just this once. Isabel stood in the yard, looking down at him, her voice like ice. There are many ways to measure a man. Brute force and a nasty mouth are the cheapest and most pathetic. She paused, then turned and gestured toward me. And him, Leo Miller. He put his life on the line to protect me. What have you ever done? The world went silent. Ricky, kneeling on the ground, the nosy neighbors who'd gathered to watch, they all stared at me. I looked at Isabel's back, not particularly broad but strong. In some frozen corner of my heart, a crack appeared. Something warm started to seep through. The way the townspeople looked at me changed. For the first time in my 26 years of life, I stood up straight in front of them all. 7 the days fell into a rhythm. I got used to telling stories about farming to her stomach. She got used to my grandma's biscuits and gravy. The air between us grew comfortable. There were even moments when I truly felt like we were a family. Me, her, and the bullet baby that existed only in a lie. One afternoon, she was in the yard on overseas call, discussing some kind of merger. I was sitting on the porch steps, whittling a piece of bamboo into a wind chime for her. She hung up and walked toward me. As she crossed a patch of flagstone slick with rainwater, her foot slipped. Ah! She cried out, her body tilting backward. My mind went blank. My body moved faster than my brain. I dropped the half-finished wind chime, lunged forward, and caught her just before she hit the ground. But she clutched her stomach, her face pale, a fine sheen of sweat on her forehead. It hurts! She breathed out the single word and curled into my arms. My heart skipped a beat. It's okay. You're okay. I didn't know if I was talking to her or myself. Without a second thought, I swept her up into my arms and ran faster than I ever had in my life toward Doc Abernathy's clinic at the edge of town. Get out of the way. Get the hell out of my way. I sprinted, roaring, my voice shaking. She was so light in my arms, but felt so heavy. Holding her, for the first time, I felt a real, gut-wrenching fear. I was afraid of losing her. And I was afraid of losing the child we had created together, even knowing how absurd it all was. By the time I burst into the clinic, I was about to collapse. Doc Abernathy, startled, scrambled to get her onto the single examination bed. Stethoscope, blood pressure cuff, he used everything he had. I paced like a caged animal, helpless and terrified. How is she, Doc? Is the baby okay? I was sweating buckets, my voice cracking. Isabel lay on the bed, watching me silently. In those eyes that were always so cool, a flicker of an emotion I couldn't decipher. Doc Abernathy finished his examination, stroked his goatee, and let out a long breath. She's fine, son, just fine. A little shaken up is all. Go on home, rest up, and have her drink some sweet tea. My knees buckled, and I nearly hit the floor. It was as if all the strength had been sucked out of me. On the way back, I didn't say a word. I walked ahead of her. Silently, I kicked every loose stone or pebble that could possibly trip her off the path. Back at the house, I made her a mug of hot, sweet tea and watched as she drank it in small sips. I sat by her bed, looking at her pale face. For the first time, I began to seriously think. I had to do something for this family. 8. The peace didn't last long. A Porsche Cayenne with Illinois plates parked aggressively in front of my house. A young man in a sharp suit, looking every bit the corporate shark, got out, flanked by 2 bodyguards. "Bed, are you insane?" The moment he stepped into the yard and saw Isabel living in my ramshackle house, he exploded. "Do you have any idea the entire company is looking for you? The board is in chaos, and you're hiding out in this godforsaken corner of the world." This was Isabel's brother, Julian Frost. He jabbed a finger in my direction. "And you worthless piece of trash. What did you do to my sister? What kind of spell did you put on her to make her stay here and eat dirt with you?" Before I could say anything, the villagers, drawn by the commotion, spoke up. Mayor Franklin slammed his hoe into the ground, his voice booming. "Who you calling trash, you little punk? That's our town hero." The local women grabbed brooms and shovels, surrounding Julian and his bodyguards. "You're not taking our lucky charm. That's right. She's carrying a Miller baby. You can't just drag her away. Keep talking like that, and we'll break your legs." Julian had clearly never seen anything like this. Surrounded by a mob of angry townspeople armed with farm tools, his face went pale. His bodyguard tried to step forward, but were immediately pinned by a few of the younger farmhands. The situation was about to boil over. I stepped out from the crowd and stood in front of Isabel. It was the first time I had consciously chosen to be on her side. I looked at her arrogant brother and said, one word at a time, "She's not going anywhere." I paused, took a deep breath, and with all the conviction I could muster, I said the most ridiculous thing I'd ever said in my life. "She's carrying my child." When the words came out, it didn't feel absurd anymore. They felt like a declaration, a promise. I was protecting my family. Isabel looked at my broad back, and for the first time, a genuine warmth bloomed in her icy eyes. She stepped forward to stand beside me and faced her brother. "Julian, go home. Tell the board I'm fine. This is my home now." Completely intimidated, Julian spat, "You'll both regret this," before scrambling back to his Porsche with his bodyguards. The villagers let out a triumphant cheer, and I, Leo Miller, became the town's hero. Looking at the woman beside me, for the first time, the distance between us didn't seem so vast. 9. The good times were short-lived. The police officer who took my statement, Officer Davis, found me a few days later. He pulled me aside, his face grim. "Leo, I need to tell you something. The ringleader from that kidnapping, Dominic Vargas, a few of his guys got away. They've been asking around, trying to find Ms. Frost. We think they might be coming for revenge. You're too isolated out here. It's not safe." My stomach dropped. Dominic Vargas, the man who had ruined my life. The news spread through town like wildfire, and people started to get scared. The mayor tried to reassure me. "Don't you worry, Leo. I'll get the boys together. We'll run patrols at night." Others were less optimistic. "Leo, maybe you should take Miss Frost and lie low for a while. Those men are desperate criminals." Lie low. I looked at my family's little house, at my parents' graves on the hill. This was my home. My roots were here. Why the hell should I run? A fighting spirit I never knew I had ignited in my gut. I wasn't the same Leo Miller who wanted to die anymore. Now, I had someone to protect. "We're not running." I looked Officer Davis straight in the eye. "Let them come. This is my turf." I gathered all the able-bodied men in town for a strategy session in my yard. Using my knowledge of the local terrain and the skills I'd picked up on construction sites, I started setting up defenses. We dug a pit trap on the narrow road leading into town, covering it with branches. We rigged tripwires in the woods around the house, connected to nets filled with heavy rocks. I even had the women boil several huge pots of cayenne pepper mash, which we loaded into garden sprayers. Rural ingenuity and construction know-how perfectly combined. Isabel watched me work without a word of protest. She even produced a hand-drawn map of the property and became my strategist. "Your traps are too close together here. They could be spotted sequentially. You need to use the blind spots from the cameras to create a chain reaction." "Blind spots?" I asked, confused. She pointed to a few inconspicuous spots under the eaves of the house. I then noticed the tiny pinhole cameras she must have installed days ago. She had transformed from a high and mighty commander into my partner. I looked at her focused profile and felt like I wasn't a broken man anymore. My knowledge, my strength, it all had a purpose. In that moment, I truly came back to life. As night fell, I stood in the yard, looking up at the star-filled sky. I spoke silently to my parents. "Mom, Dad, your son isn't running this time." The entire town of Havenwood was ready for a fight. 10 in the dead of night, silence fell over the valley. A few shadows crept into town. 2 targets, 3 o'clock. Entering trap zone 1. Isabel's voice came through a small earpiece, crisp and clear. I hid in the darkness, clutching a sharpened axe handle. Splat! Arc! 2 screams, followed by a gagging stench, rose from the edge of town. That was the manure pit trap I dug. "Nice one," I muttered. The remaining thugs were clearly spooked, becoming more cautious. They avoided the main road, trying to flank us through the woods. "Watch out. Zone B. 3 targets. They've hit the tripwire." Isabel's voice was perfectly calm. Whoosh! A large net dropped from the trees, scooping up the 3 unlucky bastards. The net was coated in honey I'd had the kid smear on it, which immediately attracted a swarm of angry hornets from a nearby nest. "Beesies, hornets! My God, get him off me!" Their screams echoed through the woods. It was like playing a real-life video game. I led my small militia of townspeople, following her remote commands, striking from all sides. We used slingshots, pepper sprayers, and hog-tying ropes. These thugs, so menacing in the city, were completely helpless against our homespun tactics. They were routed, stumbling over each other in a desperate retreat. The last one, their leader, actually made it to my house. He kicked open the yard gate, a knife gleaming in his hand. "Leo Miller, get your ass out here." I stepped out of the house, holding the smooth, worn hickory axe handle my dad used to use for splitting wood. I looked at him, feeling no fear, only the ferocity of a man defending his home. "I'm right here, you son of a bitch." He charged with a roar. I sidestepped his lunge, the axe handle swinging in a low arc, connecting squarely with his kneecap. After a short, brutal fight, I had him on the ground, tied up securely. My arm was sliced open and bleeding, but I felt a savage satisfaction. The police arrived soon after, rounding up the entire crew. The villagers cheered, lifting me onto their shoulders and tossing me into the air. "Hero, way to go, Leo." I was the town's pride and joy. Tossed in the air, I looked toward the lit window of my house. I knew that half of this victory belonged to her. We were a team. 11 after everything settled down, the town returned to its quiet rhythm. That evening, Isabel and I sat on the same hill where I'd started digging my grave, watching the sunset paint the sky gold. My arm was wrapped in a thick bandage, but my heart was more peaceful and whole than it had ever been. The mountain breeze blew past, carrying the scent of soil and grass. I watched the wind play with her hair. I instinctively reached out to smooth it down, but pulled my hand back. Instead, I gently touched her still flat stomach, my voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "Did all the excitement scare the baby?" Isabel was silent. A long, heavy silence. She didn't answer. She took out her phone and played a video. The footage was shaky from a hospital security camera. It showed me tearing up the check. And then, after she had left, it showed me desperately, repeatedly, slamming my head against the cold wall. Blood trickled down my forehead, but I acted as if I couldn't feel a thing. A sharp pain lanced through my chest. She closed the video and showed me a picture. It was a medical chart. Patient, Leo Miller. Diagnosis, acute stress disorder. Doctor's recommendation. Attempt to establish a powerful, external anchor of responsibility that the patient cannot refuse in order to reactivate his will to live. My head was spinning. She finally spoke, her voice a little hoarse. "I'm sorry. I'm not pregnant. The bullet pregnancy. I made it up. The report was faked by the best special effects team and biologists I could hire." I just sat there, frozen. The last rays of the sun warmed my face, but I felt cold to the bone. It was all a lie. The bullet baby that had given me a reason to live was a lie. The hope that had given me a sense of purpose and connection was a lie. Everything I had fought to protect was just an elaborate, calculated deception. An overwhelming sense of loss and betrayal crashed over me. I felt like a complete and utter fool, a clown she had manipulated for her own purposes. She looked at me, and in those eyes that were always so cold, I saw vulnerability and a plea for understanding. But I never thought that you would be the one protecting me in the end. "Leo, you saved me." A second time, my world tilted on its axis. 12, I was quiet for a long, long time. Down below, smoke curled from the village chimneys. The laughter of children playing tag drifted up the hill. The sounds of life, real and warm. I didn't get angry. I didn't yell. I just turned my head and looked at the woman beside me. And then I smiled. A smile more relaxed and liberated than any before. "Isabel Frost, you are, without a doubt, the craziest and most clumsy woman I have ever met." I stood up and stretched, the movement pulling at the cut on my arm, making me wince. I looked at the new scar, then down at the patch of earth where I had intended to bury myself. "But thank you." I met her eyes and said it with all the sincerity I had. The baby might have been fake, but this whole thing, it made me realize something. It doesn't matter if I'm a whole man or not. What matters is living like one. I was no longer the man who wanted to die, the man who thought his world had ended. She had, with the most absurd lie imaginable, pulled me right out of the grave I had dug for myself. Isabel's eyes slowly turned red. A single, crystalline tear traced a path down her cheek. It was the first time I had ever seen her look so fragile. I raised my uninjured hand and, a little awkwardly, wiped the tear away. Her skin was cool, but my fingertips were burning. The last light of the sunset stretched our shadows long across the grass, letting them intertwine. I looked at her face, tear-streaked like a child's, and on a whim, I spoke. So, the bullet pregnancy was fake. You want to maybe try a more scientific method? She stared at me, her teary eyes wide, as if she didn't understand. Then, a smile I had never seen before, brighter and more stunning than the sunset, bloomed across her face. She didn't say anything. She just looked at me and smiled. I knew the story of the bullet baby was over, but the story of us, that was just beginning.